Hello, I am Dr. Mirela Cherneyanu, and I welcome you to the Wellness Optimizing Warrior MD podcast, the WOW MD podcast. I am not your typical wellness coach, and this is not a typical wellness podcast. Here, I'll discuss educational facts about health, hormones, intimacy, anti-aging, and beauty trends, all very hot topics, to empower you to make great choices when it comes to your health and to your body. I want you to go, wow, I did not know that. Or, wow, this is going to make a great difference for me. Our healthcare system is broken and it needs a revolution. You and I can start one today. I am willing to share my knowledge with the world if you're willing to listen. Let's get started. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode about dieting. Now, let me start by saying that I hate dieting. I like to eat natural, healthy as much as possible. I do have my own processed foods I enjoy. And when I started talking about chemicals, disruptors, and clean diet, contaminated diet, I didn't think I was going to talk so much about diet. And I promise this is the last episode. But I personally am not one of those diet-obsessed people. I believe our life is short, and I don't want to focus too much on food. But we do have in the family a little bit of a food, not obsession, too much of a food focus, because all our family gatherings are only around food and there's a lot of eating when we get together. So that's always been a little bit of a thing. And I want to continue talking about diet. And like I said, this is the last episode. And I'm going to start in this episode by reviewing the types of diets. I'm going to discuss some of their attributes and characteristics, review some of the pros and cons, and then kind of sum it up a little bit. Then I'll go on and talk about why perfection in a diet is very subjective and might not exist. And I'll give you my top 10 reasons why there is no perfect diet. And after I shoot you down with the, oh my God, I'm eating great and I have a perfect diet, I'm actually going to go forward and talk a little bit about what I believe a perfect diet would look like and talk about what's the reality of being compliant with such a diet. So I'm going to get started, and I'm going to talk about the types of diets that I've briefly mentioned in the previous episode. The first diet, it's the most well-known, and it's the Mediterranean diet. This diet is very simple. It's based, again, like I said in the last episode, on the traditional eating patterns of countries that border the Mediterranean Sea. It is a diet very big on vegetables, fruits, whole grains, fish, and olive oil, with limitations on red meat products and processed foods for sure. The other type of diet that's very common and very talked about is the paleo diet. So again, this was inspired by the presumed diet of the Paleolithic humans. I say presumed because we don't really know exactly what they ate. We can infer, based on evidence available and some historical data, that their diet was focused on whole foods, like lean meats, fish, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. And obviously, they didn't have any grains, dairy, or processed foods. The keto diet is very high in fats and moderate in protein intake, very low in carbs. It aims to shift the body into a state of ketosis in order to burn our fat for energy instead of our carbs. It's a very specific purpose. You can eat keto and eat processed foods. As you can tell, you go to the store or grocery stores and you buy stuff, and a lot of them have the keto label. And again, that's food marketing at work, just like I said in my previous episode. But it's a very well-known diet. Who hasn't ketoed at least a couple times in their lives? The vegetarian diet excludes all animal products, no meat, no fish, no eggs or dairy, and relies simply on plant-based foods for nutrition. Plant-based diets are very rich in vitamins and minerals and antioxidants, and they are usually high-fiber diets. they're promoting digestive health. They reduce risk for cardiovascular disease and diabetes, as plant-based foods have usually a low glycemic index. However, this type of diet carries a significant risk of over-consuming processed foods. Why? Because many vegetarians and vegans eat processed plant-based alternatives to meat and dairy, like tofurkey. I don't know who came up with that name, but I think it's pretty funny. And some of these processed foods, they're very likely high in added sugars and sodium and unhealthy fats and other additives. And last but not least, there's a significant risk of B12 deficiency with this diet because B12 can only be provided by animal products. Let me say a few words about our next diet that you might have not heard of or might have heard of in passing, and you might be wondering, what the heck is up with this diet? The carnivore diet. Well, the carnivore diet involves eating primarily animal products, meat, fish, and animal fats, and then that's it. The proponents of the carnivore diet claim that eliminating plant foods and focusing on animal-based sources can improve their health, promote weight loss, reduce inflammation, and address various health conditions. However, the carnivore diet raises significant concerns about nutrient deficiencies, long-term sustainability, and potential health risks because of these two things. There's clear weight loss on this diet because it's a very restrictive diet. It has a very high protein content, and there's a significant potential reduction in the overall caloric intake. The elimination of carbohydrates and high fiber foods can and will lead to rapid weight loss in the short term. This is a very simple and very convenient diet. It's very straightforward and very easy to follow. You just buy, cook, and consume animal products. There is no need for complex meal planning, food preparation. You can buy the food already made and prepped. You just heat it up. You can cook your own food pretty quickly. So this simplicity may appeal to some individuals that are looking for a very strict and structured dietary approach. Now, the biggest drawback with this type of diet is its lack of diversity. The carnivore diet may not provide all the essential nutrients needed for optimal health. It actually doesn't. We need variety. We need to consume a wide variety of foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes. This variety ensures a balanced intake of nutrients and phytochemicals that support various bodily functions. Every single one of the vegetables and fruits, Google the name and Google what minerals and vitamins it has in it. And taking a pill that has those vitamins and minerals to make up for what you're not eating is not going to be the same. The carnivore diet might make you feel great for a few months. Usually after 6 months or more, if you do not take all the nutrient needs your body specifically has, into consideration, and do not adequately supplement vitamins and minerals, maybe just don't even go to a doctor, you don't test, you don't talk to anybody, in the long run, you might definitely have some problems. The Atkins diet, low carb, high protein diet developed by Dr. Atkins in the 1960s. This diet is all about reducing carbs and increasing protein and fats. Everybody knows about Atkins, has been around for a long time. Autoimmune diet, it's a very simple diet. It's a modified and restricted paleo diet without nuts and seeds. This diet is designed to reduce inflammation, to support the immune system, and alleviate symptoms associated with autoimmune disease. And last but not least, the Whole30 diet, which is a 30-day elimination diet that cuts out sugar, alcohol, grains, legumes, dairy, any processed foods. And like I said before, it's an autoimmune diet for 30 days. So what I'd like to do next is talk about the pros and cons of long-term adherence to a specific diet for a sustained period of time, regardless of the type of diet. Just plug in Diet X And all these pros should apply to some extent, and the cons as well. So what are the main pros of being on a specific diet for a long period of time? Well, number one, if you stick with it, all these diets have the potential for significant weight loss. Many diets require you to eliminate processed foods, and they focus on nutrient-dense whole foods. This will control cravings and appetite and would promote a natural reduction of caloric intake. Also, some of these diets encourage consumption of protein-rich foods. This will boost your metabolism and promote fat burning. So that's all good. Now, another pro is stable and improved blood sugar levels, because the majority of these diets avoid refined sugars and processed carbs. So Atkins, paleo, the carnivore diet, the Mediterranean diet can all help improve insulin resistance and reduce the risk for type 2 diabetes. Another major pro of being on a specific diet for a long time is reduced inflammation. Many diets are focused on eliminating most, if not all, processed foods. These foods are often very high in inflammatory ingredients, like refined sugars and trans fats. If you want to know more about it, I talked about it in one of my previous episodes about the dirty diet. So go revisit that. If we reduce our inflammation, obviously we can help prevent chronic disease. We can reduce risk of cancer and promote a better health. Another major pro is improved digestion. In a lot of these diets that exclude grains and dairy, there's a significant improvement in digestive function because these two food groups, grains and dairy, gluten and casein from dairy, these two proteins are significantly problematic. They're very allergenic, and these food groups are irritating for many individuals. So the diets that require you to eliminate grains and dairy can reduce bloating, improve overall gut health, and restore your microbiome. Another major pro for sustaining a diet for a long time is improved energy levels and resolution of fatigue. Because by emphasizing the consumption of wholesome, unprocessed foods, eating only nutrient-dense foods, any diet will provide sustained energy throughout the day, improving mental clarity and focus. If that's not the case, then the diet is not working for you, obviously. Duh. And one of the last but not least and very important pro is improved skin health and reduced acne breakouts. Because again, none of these diets have processed foods in them, but they're in abundance and we eat them because they're convenient. So by excluding processed foods and sugar, many of these diets will help you improve your skin health. Now, what are the negatives? What are the downsides of being on a specific diet for a very long time? Well, if the diet excludes major food groups like grains and dairy, or excludes animal products like the vegetarian diet, or excludes grain, legumes, nuts, and seeds like the paleo, and if all these food groups are actually sources of essential nutrients for fiber, for calcium, for vitamin D, for protein, etc., when a diet restricts access to a major food group, there is a significant risk for nutrient deficiency-related health issues. And the problem is with these nutrient deficiency-related health issues, they manifest in so many ways. You can't even put your finger on it and say, oh yeah, I have low vitamins. Because there's no signs and symptoms. They're so widespread. Another negative is the possible increased risk of heart disease with animal-based diets. It's stipulated that the consumption of high levels of animal protein and fats in some types of diet, like the paleo, the carnivore diet, if not balanced with plant-based foods, will cause elevated levels of saturated fats and cholesterol, which could increase the risk of plaque and cardiovascular problems. Now, these are the naysayers. The yay-sayers say that that's not the case. And that's where probably genetic individuality comes into play. And there's a high variability because all these diets are going to be processed so differently in individuals because our metabolic processes are so different. Another possible downside of sticking with a certain type of diet for a long time is the risk for impaired kidney function. The emphasis on high protein foods in some of the diets that I mentioned, the autoimmune, the paleo, the Atkins, the carnivore, can put a strain on the kidneys and can worsen pre-existing kidney conditions or predispose some individuals to kidney-related health issues. Another big downside for some of these diets is inadequate fiber intake because by excluding grains and legumes, for example, the carnivore diet, the paleo diet, the autoimmune diet, fiber is essential for our microbiome, the healthy, friendly bacteria that lives in our gut. So it's very important for our digestive health, for regulating our blood sugar, and a lack of fiber can lead to constipation, diverticulitis, and many other digestive disorders, as well as an increased risk of colon cancer. What other downsides are there to following a diet for a long time? Well, eliminating carbs, it's all good. It's great. It has multiple health benefits. However, carbs are a primary source of energy for the body. And the elimination of carbs for prolonged periods of time can make some people feel very tired and very sluggish. So when you feel that way, the diet's not working for you. You have a problem. You have to adapt, pivot, and switch to something different. Again, I mentioned this before, but this is a very important downside. Limiting food choices and consuming a limited variety of foods is going to make it harder to get all necessary nutrients required for optimal health. And then a couple of very important downsides are dieting in general can and will lead to restrictive eating habits, which can be harmful to the physical and mental health of an individual. I don't know about you, but I told you I hate dieting. I don't want to be on a diet. I want to eat healthy. And I just can see myself following a specific type of diet for more than 2 to 3 months to get me where I want to get. Another downside is that eating a strict vegetarian, paleo, carnivore, autoimmune, Atkins diet, Whole30 can lead to social isolation. It will make it very difficult to eat with your family and your friends if you eat a certain way and they don't. It could lead to you avoiding social events where there are processed foods or restricted foods in abundance and you think you're not going to trust yourself to skip them. So you might as well not go. So that's a problem. Also, and this might not be a problem for everybody, higher cost. High quality organic, grass-fed meat, other paleo-approved foods can be much more costly, making it challenging for some to sustain these types of diets for prolonged periods of time. So if all the diets I mentioned are awesome and they all work for various reasons, then how do you know which one to pick? How do you know which one's the diet for you? The question I'm asking in this podcast, and again, I'm going to give you the answer pretty quickly. The answer is that there is no such thing as a perfect diet, but there is probably a perfect diet for you. And I want to get there and I'm going to tell you exactly what the perfect diet would look like. So individuals, people, you and I, men and women, we all might strive to find this perfect diet that promises us optimal health. So I want to acknowledge that perfection in a diet is subjective and might not exist. So let me give you my top 10 reasons why I believe there's no such a thing as the perfect diet. Number 1, bioindividuality. Each person's body is unique. Different genetic makeup, different metabolism, different digestive system, different nutritional needs. What works well for one individual may not necessarily be ideal for another. Again, this highlights the concept of bioindividuality and the need for personalized nutritional approach. Number 2, we have constant changing needs. Our human bodies are dynamic. They're constantly evolving. Unfortunately, we're getting older. That's the constant state of evolution from the moment we get born until we die. We just constantly get older. But this dynamic, it's constantly influenced by our age, our activity level, our hormones, our stress, and our overall health. So our nutritional needs will change throughout our life. So a static, perfect diet that worked for you in your 30s is not going to work in your 40s when you go into perimenopause. And it's not going to work in your 50s when you're in menopause. So again, a static diet may not adequately address evolving requirements and changing requirements as your body ages. Number 3, cultural variations. There's lots of dietary preferences, traditions, cultural practices, and there's a huge differences across regions and communities. And what constitutes a balanced and nourishing diet can vary greatly based on cultural backgrounds, food availability, culinary traditions, and social norms. Number 4, nutritional complexity. Our human body requires a diverse array of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, antioxidants, and phytonutrients for optimal health. Achieving the perfect balance of all these essential nutrients through diet alone can be challenging given the complexity of nutritional needs. And this is food for thought and another topic for another podcast. Why do we need supplements? And why do we need to supplement? And why the name supplements? We're supplementing what we can't get from our diet. Number 5, lifestyle factors. Our dietary success, it's not going to be determined purely by our food choices. It is also influenced by lifestyle factors like sleep patterns, physical activity, stress level, hydration, our mental well-being. If you neglect all these aspects and you focus only on your diet, this might not give you the health outcome you're hoping for. Number 6, food sensitivities and allergies. Many individuals have food sensitivities, intolerances, or allergies that require specific dietary modifications to prevent adverse reactions. And again, the fact that these unique dietary considerations exist adds so much complexity to the idea that there is a universal perfect diet. There is no such thing. Number 7, psychological and emotional factors. We know, and I talked about this in Why We're Addicted to Foods, our food choices are influenced by emotions, by social interactions, by cultural associations, and by our personal preferences. So all the emotional eating patterns, the stress-related behaviors, and our various psychological factors will impact our dietary decisions. And all of these are making a rigid, perfect diet very challenging to maintain. Number 8, environmental impact. Well, a lot of people talk about this a lot, the sustainability, the environmental footprint of our food production. It plays a crucial role in dietary choices for some people. So when we consider and we talk about the perfect diet, ideally, we definitely want to think about ethical concerns, our environmental impact, sustainability. We don't want to kill all the cows all at once, right? Then we're going to have no cows. Food sourcing, we want to know where the food comes from. And all of these add different layers of complexity to defining a perfect diet. And last but not least, number 9, industry influences. Food industry, marketing industry, wellness industry, various trends and commercial interests will shape dietary recommendations and consumer choices. There's lots of conflicting information. There are fad diets. There's a lot of marketing hype, which can cloud the perception of what constitutes the optimal or perfect diet for you. As the marketing that you see, you hear on social media, on wherever you come in contact with it, it's all about the sale and the promo. It's not about, is this way of eating right for you? So I don't want to leave you on a negative side with there is no such thing as a perfect diet, but I want to talk about what a perfect diet would look like. So let me give you my top attributes for a perfect diet. Number one, it should be nutritionally adequate and focused on whole foods. A perfect diet should be inclusive of all essential nutrients, minerals, vitamins, and antioxidants that we need for optimal health. So obviously it would involve the intake of minimum to no processed foods. All of these are high in added sugars, unhealthy fats, artificial ingredients, additives, and colorants. So none of that. But a perfect diet would have fiber-rich foods, would incorporate healthy fats like avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, coconut oil, and would have high-quality lean protein from sustainable sources. So nutritionally adequate. Number two, the perfect diet would be based on locally sourced and seasonal foods, because produce that's in season and comes from local sources will always be fresher and retain more nutrients. Number three, the perfect diet would have balanced macros in order to provide the perfect amount of carbohydrates, protein, and fats that your body needs. And if you work at home, sitting in front of your computer every day, barely take a stretch here and there, you're too busy to find time to exercise or too tired, then your macros need to look totally different than mine. I walk with my dog 2 miles a day, take a hot yoga class 5 times a week for 1 hour. I make up more than my 10,000 steps daily. And mine are going to be very different than the same age woman who is training for a bodybuilding competition and she wants to be on the cover of a magazine. So these are 3 different situations that involve very different macro compositions. Number 4, biological individuality. I talked about this earlier. We have to take into account each individual's unique nutritional needs based on factors like their age, their activity levels, their genetics, their specific metabolism, and whether or not they have underlying health conditions. Number 5, very important, balance and moderation. A diet that includes a variety of whole foods that are consumed in moderation is considered optimal for most people. A diet that includes and takes into account portion control to prevent overeating and focused on maintaining nutrient balance with no excess calories, it's a perfect diet. Now, a perfect diet is not perfect if it does not allow for an occasional treat or indulgence, which can maintain a sustainable and balanced approach to eating overall. So you gotta give yourself a little leeway there to fall off the wagon just a little bit, but then come right back on it. Number 6, long-term sustainability. How sustainable a diet is and how practical it is for the individual to follow it determines how perfect that diet is for that individual. A very restricted diet that's difficult to maintain, or a diet that imposes undue stress on the individual, is not sustainable in the long run. That individual, man or woman, will fail to stay with that diet. Number 7, you have to adjust your diet for health goals. If your goal is weight loss, then obviously you're going to be on a different diet than an athlete competing and training daily for hours a day. If your goal is to manage diabetes or high blood pressure or chronic kidney disease or SIBO or autoimmune disease, well, the dietary recommendation is going to be very different depending on whatever condition you have that's ongoing. Number 8, adaptability. A perfect diet needs to be adaptable enough to accommodate changing needs dictated by travel, social life, personal preferences that are based on cultural, religious, possibly ethical considerations. For example, you would eat very different if you follow the Christian Russian Orthodox Lent or other major religious events throughout the year. You eat different when you travel because you're not cooking your food, and healthy food choices are not always available when you're hungry. You just have to eat what you get, what's there. You also eat different when you are out with family and friends and when you celebrate something. There's always that special food that you have to get just because you're celebrating your anniversary or you're out with people. So your diet needs to be adaptable. If it's too rigid, it's no longer perfect. Number 9, mindful eating would be an absolute attribute for a perfect diet. Why? Well, because ultimately the concept of a perfect diet may involve tuning into your body's cues, your hunger signals, what triggers desires and cravings for food. This type of diet may involve paying attention to how the food you eat makes you feel and eating with awareness, so mindfully, and then constantly cultivating a healthy relationship with eating. Number 10, flexibility and enjoyment. A perfect diet would allow for flexibility and enjoyment of food without shame, guilt, or other negative feelings about food. So by combining all these elements, a perfect diet in today's world would promote our individual health and well-being, and obviously take into account a sustainable food system that respects cultural, religious traditions, ethical considerations, as well as our mother planet, Mother Earth. So what happens if we adhere to a restricted type of diet? What usually happens? Well, the answer is very simple. We're likely to fail. And I want to discuss the reasons why this happens. And I promise I'll end here. I'm almost close. And I'm going to give you 10 reasons why we fail with our diets. And I don't mean to end on a negative, but these are 10 things to consider and to ask yourself, is this why I'm failing with my diet? Number 1, reason is restriction and deprivation. A lot of diets that focus on very strict rules that eliminate entire food groups or impose a severe caloric restriction will definitely lead to feelings of deprivation and cravings. This can result in binge eating followed by shame and guilt, making commitments to be better. The cycle repeats so many times, it will ultimately result in the abandonment of the diet altogether, and it messes up our eating behavior. Number 2, we have unrealistic expectations. Many types of diets promise quick fixes, drastic weight loss, or unrealistic sustainable results. And when these expectations are not met within a very short period of time, we unfortunately have such a short attention span now. I'm going to say if somebody doesn't feel a difference in 30 days or less, the majority of individuals will feel discouraged and give up. However, you need about 60 to 90 days for the diet to even work. In some people who are, again, hyper responders, the diet, whatever diet we're talking about here, Atkins, paleo, autoimmune, works like a charm and immediately. But in other people, they have deep-rooted problems, and the diet doesn't always fix them. So don't have unrealistic expectations. Be patient. Number 3, lack of sustainability and compliance. Same problem. If a diet requires extreme measures, like major caloric restriction, or giving up entirely a few major food groups, or if this diet requires a constant vigilant attitude, it requires focus and time in order to ensure maximum compliance, it will become exhausting and unsustainable over time. Number 4, many diets focus on external rules versus on inner cues. For example, many diets prioritize very strict rules and guidelines. Can't eat this, can't eat that, over internal cues of hunger, fullness, and satisfaction. And ignoring the body's natural signals can lead to a disconnection from intuitive eating and self-regulation, which obviously can only lead to overeating and restrictions that can adversely impact your health and relationship with food. Number 5, I believe that there's a significant psychological impact that dieting has on our brain. Constantly worrying over food choices, tracking calories, tracking macros can be exhausting. Who has the time for that? And then feeling guilty for deviating from the diet can take a toll on anyone's mental health. The stress and the anxiety associated with very strict adherence requirements to a specific diet, and the shame and the guilt that some people feel when they have lapses in their commitment can lead to disorganized, disordered eating patterns and possibly very negative body image issues and a very bad relationship with food. Number 6, many of these diets that I just mentioned, outside of the Mediterranean diet, are meant for short term. They're focused on achieving a specific goal. Once that goal is achieved, there might be a lack of motivation to maintain the diet. And a relapse to old eating habits is very likely, especially if you have not focused on the cause for the problem that you employed and started the diet to begin with. So please focus on finding the root cause for the problem that made you feel the way you feel and try to solve it while you adopt a diet. That's going to guarantee that when you decide, okay, this diet is over, I got my goal, I lost my weight, I'm no longer inflamed, I feel better. If you simply resume where you left off, you will eventually come back to the state of health and how you felt before you started the diet. So focus on the root cause if possible while you are following the diet. Number 7 reason why diets are usually failing is because they are usually a one-size-fits-all approach. No diet takes into account differences in metabolism, in genetics, in age, gender, and lifestyle factors. None of these diets that I mentioned, again, with the exception of the Mediterranean diet, all the other diets will technically need to be tailored to your individual needs and preferences if you want it to be sustainable and effective in the long run. Number 8, I mentioned this before, social and cultural pressure might make it very hard to follow a diet and be compliant with actually any diet. Let me give you some examples. You might feel the social pressure of attending an event with catered food where you can't eat it. You might not have enough food choices available when you travel. So you're thinking about, what am I going to eat? How am I going to do this? It would make you possibly not want to travel. Or for example, you could have bad food choices easily available at work or at home when you're hungry and you're unprepared. So you're tempted. Or you participate in social gatherings where you know you can't bring food. It's not acceptable. It's a restaurant. And there are no alternative healthy food choices to ensure your compliance with a specific diet. All of this puts social and cultural pressure on you, which leads to conflict and problems. Number 9, there's a lack of enjoyment and flexibility. Believe it or not, I mentioned this in the Are We Addicted to Our Food? Food is a source of pleasure, intense satisfaction. It's a source of social connection and cultural integrity. And unfortunately, a diet that's going to ignore or overlook these aspects of eating is always going to feel restrictive, joyless, and will unlikely be unsustainable in the long run. And number 10, this is my favorite reason why diets fail, not looking at the big picture. Not looking at why did you need to lose weight? Why do you have inflammation? Why have you developed an autoimmune issue? And not asking or addressing these questions and simply following a type of diet, autoimmune, paleo diet, keto diet, carnivore diet, that is meant to bring improvement and resolution to your health issue, but ignoring what brought you to the point where you are, the point where you need a certain diet, ignoring all of this is going to make your diet doomed to fail from the get-go. So please seek help and involve a team of experts that could help you figure it out. Find the solution to the problem, not just use a diet and give it up. Oh, I feel better, so I don't need to keep looking. at why am I feeling this way. So to sum it up, the notion of a perfect diet is multifaceted, influenced by individuality, our changing needs, takes into account cultural variations, nutritional complexity, our lifestyle factors, food sensitivities, emotional influences, environmental considerations, very important for some people, industry influences, and the importance of flexibility and adaptability. So rather than striving for eating a perfect diet, maybe we just need to focus on a balanced, varied, and individualized approach to nutrition that would promote our overall health, sustainability, and well-being. Remember, consulting with healthcare professionals, a registered dietitian, a nutritionist, or a healthcare provider like a doctor can definitely help you develop a personalized dietary plan that would align with your needs, your preferences, your health goals, emphasizing a holistic and sustainable approach to nutrition and wellness rather than seeking a perfect diet. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much with this. I really liked talking about this subject, and I'm going to end here by thanking you profusely for dedicating the time to listen to me, and hopefully you learned something useful that you can take and apply to your own diet and your own eating habits. Until we see each other again, I say goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. If you are one of my faithful listeners and you are finding value and enjoying these episodes, please feel free to leave me a review on whatever platform you're listening to. Also, if you find the content in these topics useful, not just to you, but to someone else, a friend, a loved one, or simply an acquaintance that you know could benefit from the knowledge I share here, please feel free to forward my podcast to them. If you live in California and you'd like to work with our practice to help you achieve your wellness goals, please go to our website, www.herabeautyandwellness.com, and request an appointment. It will be our privilege to help you in any way, shape, and form we can. Any suggestions on a topic of beauty, wellness, or anti-aging are welcome. All you have to do is go to the website, leave a suggestion into the AI chat, and I promise you if you ask, I will listen and add your suggestion to my list of topics that I want to get to as soon as possible. Please join our Facebook group, The Wellness Optimizing Warrior MD. It's a small growing community that focuses on wellness, on what's new, what's safe, and what works in beauty, wellness, and anti-aging.